100,000 corpses lay silent on the battlefield. Rivers ran red with blood. An entire civilization, men, women, children, wiped from existence in a single, merciless campaign. And standing among the carnage was the man responsible, Emperor Ashoka the Great. But this wasn't the end of his story, you see. It was the beginning of the most extraordinary transformation in human history. Because what happened next would change not just one man's soul, but the spiritual destiny of half the world. Welcome back to Crimes of the Crown. I'm Chris, your host, and today we're traveling back 2,300 years to ancient India to witness one of history's most devastating wars and one of its most remarkable redemptions. Meet Ashoka Maurya, initially known as Ashoka, meaning Ashoka the Cruel. He carved his path to the throne through the blood of his own brothers, killing 99 siblings to secure his crown. By 262 BCE, his empire stretched across most of the Indian subcontinent, but one proud kingdom dared to defy him: Kalinga, a prosperous independent realm on India's eastern coast. They had wealth, they had warriors, and they had something that would seal their own doom: pride. They refused to bow to Ashoka's empire. What followed was a war so brutal, so devastating, that it would haunt one man's conscience forever. But here's the question that will drive our investigation today. How does a man who orchestrates mass genocide become one of history's greatest champions of peace? Let's find out. To understand the Kalinga War, we must first understand the man who waged it. Ashoka didn't inherit his throne, he stole it, soaked in the blood of his own family. Ancient sources tell us Ashoka eliminated 99 of his brothers in his ruthless climb to power. Only one brother, Tishya, survived, and only because Ashoka deemed him no threat. This wasn't politics, this was systematic fratricide on an unprecedented scale. By the time Ashoka consolidated power, the Mauryan Empire was already massive, stretching from Afghanistan to Bengal. But empires, like appetites, only grow with feeding. And there was one glaring gap in Ashoka's dominion: Kalinga, a wealthy maritime kingdom controlling crucial trade routes along India's eastern seaboard. They had gold, they had ports, and most infuriatingly for Ashoka, they had independence. You see, Kalinga wasn't just any kingdom, it was an absolute naval powerhouse. Their ships dominated trade routes to Southeast Asia, bringing immense wealth flowing into their coffers. They had everything: military might, economic prosperity, and most dangerous of all, the confidence to say no to the most powerful emperor in India. When Ashoka's envoys arrived demanding submission, Kalinga's response was swift and unambiguous: "We bow to no foreign king." It was a declaration that would doom 250,000 people. For Ashoka, this wasn't just political defiance, it was personal humiliation. Here was a kingdom smaller than many of his provinces, daring to reject the authority of Ashoka the Cruel. The insult demanded blood. But Kalinga had no idea what they had awakened. Ashoka didn't just wage war. Oh no, he waged annihilation. In 262 BCE, Ashoka had assembled one of the largest armies ancient India had ever seen. Historians estimate anywhere from 400,000 to 600,000 soldiers, a force designed not just to conquer, but to obliterate. This wasn't going to be a typical territorial dispute. Ashoka had made a decision that would echo through centuries. Kalinga would serve as an example. Any kingdom that dared defy the Mauryan Empire would witness what happened to those who refused to kneel. The Kalingans weren't naive. They knew what was coming, you see. Their king mobilized every able-bodied man, woman, and even children. This would be total war, because Ashoka had made it clear that surrender was no longer an option. On one side, you have the most professional military machine in ancient India, led by an emperor who had literally walked through the blood of his own brothers to reach his throne. On the other hand, a proud people fighting not just for their kingdom, but for their very existence and right to live. The Kalinga War wasn't a battle. It was a slaughter that lasted months. The Kalingans fought with the desperation of people who knew they faced extinction. But desperation, no matter how fierce, cannot overcome overwhelming force. What makes this war uniquely horrific is that it wasn't just soldiers dying. Ashoka's forces showed no mercy to civilians. Men, women, children, elderly, anyone who could hold a weapon, or even those who couldn't, became targets. The numbers are staggering, even by ancient standards. Historical records suggest over 100,000 Kalingans were killed in battle. Another 150,000 were deported, torn from their homeland, their families, their very identity. But even these numbers don't quite capture the true horror. Entire bloodlines were extinguished. Cities that had thrived for centuries were reduced to ash. A culture that had flourished for generations was systematically erased. And when the last sword fell silent, when the final cry of anguish faded into the wind, Emperor Ashoka stood victorious. Kalinga was his. The Mauryan Empire was complete. Victory had never tasted so much like poison. What happened next has puzzled historians for over 2 millennia. According to his own edicts, Ashoka personally toured the battlefield after his victory. He walked among the corpses of men, women, and children. He saw the smoke rising from the burning homes. He heard the wails of the few survivors. And for the first time in his brutal life, Ashoka the Cruel felt something he had never experienced: remorse. In his own words, carved in stone across his empire, Ashoka wrote, "The beloved of the gods felt remorse. For when an independent country is conquered, the slaughter, death, and deportation of the people is extremely grievous and weighs heavily on the mind of the beloved of the gods." Imagine a man who had built his entire identity on strength, on conquest, on the ability to impose his will through violence, suddenly confronted with the true cost of that violence. Not just numbers on a battlefield report, but human faces, human suffering, human annihilation that he had personally ordered. What followed was perhaps the most dramatic personality transformation in recorded history. Ashoka didn't just feel guilty, he completely reinvented himself. He converted to Buddhism, embracing a philosophy of nonviolence so completely that he banned animal sacrifice throughout his entire empire. The man who had ordered the slaughter of 250,000 people now wouldn't allow the killing of a single goat. He issued edicts throughout his vast empire, inscribed on rocks and pillars, some of which still stand today, promoting religious tolerance, nonviolence, and moral governance. Ashoka the Cruel became Dharmashoka the Righteous. But perhaps his most lasting legacy came from his promotion of Buddhism. Under Ashoka's patronage, Buddhist missionaries spread the religion to Sri Lanka, Central Asia, and Southeast Asia. A spiritual philosophy that had helped heal his traumatized conscience would go on to guide hundreds of millions of people. But here's the supreme irony. The man responsible for one of India's greatest atrocities became the emperor who spread one of the world's most peaceful religions. The hands that ordered mass murder became the hands that built hospitals, roads, and monuments to compassion. Today, Emperor Ashoka is remembered not as Ashoka the Cruel, but as one of India's greatest rulers. His wheel of Dharma adorns India's flag. His lion capital tops the Indian national emblem. The man who once waded through rivers of blood is now a symbol of peace and moral governance. But this raises uncomfortable questions that echo through history. Can a person truly atone for genocide? Does genuine remorse excuse mass murder? And perhaps most troubling, if even the cruelest tyrant can find redemption, what does that say about the nature of evil itself? The story of Ashoka and Kalinga isn't just ancient history. It's a mirror reflecting modern questions about power, responsibility, and the possibility of genuine transformation. In our world of ongoing conflicts and leaders who justify violence for political ends, Ashoka's journey from destroyer to protector offers both hope and warning. So I'll leave you with this question. Do you believe people can truly change? Can someone who commits unforgivable acts find genuine redemption? And if they can, does that redemption erase their crimes or simply add another layer to their complex legacy? What do you think? Was Ashoka's transformation genuine? Or is it just skilled political theater? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and your insights often spark ideas for future episodes. If this dive into one of history's most dramatic transformations fascinated you, smash that like button, subscribe to Crimes of the Crown, and ring that notification bell so you never miss our investigations into the dark secrets of power. Next week, we're exploring another ruler whose conscience caught up with them, but their story ended very differently. Until then, remember, history's greatest lessons often come from its darkest chapters.